Hi, everybody. It's Bob Ost, and this is Theater Resources Unlimited's Friday Community Gathering. For those of you out there in YouTube land or wherever you're finding us, if you don't know who we are, we're a small arts organization that I founded 33 years ago here in New York, Manhattan, and we're focused on really helping support people in the business side of the arts. We help start off. I thought my mission originally was to help producers, and we actually do help producers and have been for many years. But I also, over the years, discovered that there are a lot of people that are producers who don't know it. Self-producing artists who find ways of getting the work out there on their own because they get tired of waiting for a producer to discover them. So we encourage them to produce themselves. SPA, self-producing artists. SPA, it's so relaxing to produce yourself. So we now many we started this particular thing, this particular program, as a response to COVID. We were looking for ways to engage the community, and for all of us to not feel quite as isolated as we were feeling. And I opened up a Zoom room. I make it sound like it just happened. I mean, I was so smart. I opened up a Zoom room. I had no idea what to do. People actually were begging me. They were just like, no, 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 you have to open to a Zoom room. I said, I don't know what Zoom is. What are you talking about? But they finally convinced me. And lo and behold, every Friday since April 17th, 2020, we've had 30 to 50 people attend every week. And I'm very honored to be continuing to do this. I'm also a little overwhelmed at having to find a topic and a speaker every week. This is, I think, our 268th. I think it's our 268th show. So it's it's really funny how I do. I basically just keep my eyes and ears open and see what's going on around us in our community and in our culture and in the world. And people just reveal themselves to me. It's like, oh, this would be an interesting person to talk, and that would be an interesting person to have on the show. And I get emails from people who invite me to shows, but instead I invite them to be on my show. So I don't go to as many of the shows that I'm invited to. I would be spending my entire life going to shows if I went to everything I was invited to. Oh my goodness. Um, so today we're revisiting the Edinburgh Fringe. For those of you who follow us, you know that we've done two previous Edinburgh Fringe Festival conversations. We did some people that I knew who presented at the Fringe. We did some people that were involved in the backstage areas of the Fringe, including my producer friend Molly Morris. And today I'm finally getting to Michelle Mangan, who is a publicist. The first day at the Fringe, I met a publicist at the Fringe in a place called Sheddenborough. We'll talk about Sheddenborough. And I said to I said to her the same thing I say to almost everybody I meet, which is, "Would you like to be on my show?" And she said, "Sure." So we're finally following up. I was there back in August. So 3 months later, we're going to talk to Michelle, and we're also bringing on a, a New York press agent, good friend of mine, very dear friend of mine. I've known him for ages and ages, Jonathan Slaff. I thought it would be interesting to have Michelle, who's in Scotland, and Jonathan, who's in New York, and we'll see where the conversation goes. So I'm going to bring them in one at a time. I'm going to do ladies first. So I'm going to bring Michelle in. And so Michelle, welcome to TRU. Welcome to the Friday Community Gathering. What time is it where you are? You're in Scotland.
It's now 10:41 p.m. in the evening.
10:41 p.m. Bless your heart for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, it's brilliant. It's lovely. Thank you so much, Bob, for inviting me. It was lovely to meet you in the summer here in Scotland, and then it's lovely to meet you all on this Zoom and hear about all the work that you're all producing or putting in development. Yes, it's a real honor to be part of this. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And tell us a little bit about your background. I mean, I know what you do now. I know that you're very interesting to me because I'm used to publicists who publicize shows. you do that, but you also publicize theaters. You're the like one of the official
Mhm.
Edinburgh Fringe publicists, aren't you?
Yeah.
Well,
Well, basically, yeah. I mean, like I'm a publicist. I've worked over the years in many sort of fields. So for many years, I worked in the music industry for like massive record labels like EMI Records, Virgin Records, everybody from Iggy Pop to the Spice Girls to small indie bands that were up and coming. And then I'd always been a sort of theatre and sort of film sort of that's what I studied. And I kind of after that I kind of went back into the arts again and worked, as you said, for theatres. And then individual shows. But what I also have done is ran the PR for festivals. I've actually ran festivals as well, like smaller festivals, smaller film festivals, etc. And kind of when it comes to things like the Edinburgh Festival Fringe, I've worked on many venues that produce at the Edinburgh Fringe, many shows and showcases like, country showcases at the Edinburgh Fringe. And then for 4 years, I actually went into the organization that runs the Fringe called the Fringe Society. That's the organization at the middle of that whole festival. And I ran the media operation for that for the 4 years. So, been brilliant is the amazing work I've been able to be involved in or able to help. When I was at the Fringe Society, it was like I could help everybody that was registering a show at that Fringe. And I just want to say that every year it blows my mind the amount of amazing creativity that is still out there. And despite the difficulties that people have in getting funding and the economics of producing theatre, producing work is more and more difficult as time goes on. Just the sheer absolute passion, talent, and creativity that's out there is something that, as I said, really blows me away every single year.
well, I'm going to bring on Jonathan now too, so that we have the two of you. Jonathan, in some ways, I thought there were interesting parallels between what you do, what the two of you do, because Jonathan also doesn't just do plays. He doesn't just represent plays. He represents theater companies, and he also represents. Well, Jonathan, you tell us because you do more than theater.
Well, I do theater and I do self-producing artists of many disciplines, and I do some independent films as well. Uh, Interestingly, I was trained in sports in my college jobs back in the late 60s and early 70s. I've been doing this for over 50 years. And the experience in sports was weird, but I came out with a lot of technique and a lot of seasoning that probably helped me now and still help me. I went to Columbia Business School and I majored in media management, thinking I was going to go into networks or uh, newspapers, but it didn't go that way. My family was in the circulation business, so I grew up in circulation, and
Like
we had an option to
separation.
buy a paper in Pennsylvania that we never got to exercise. So I was training myself to be a publisher, but I never had the opportunity.
Um, Michelle, could you give us a little bit more about your background and your training? Did you expect did when you were a little girl, did you say I want to be a publicist when I grow up?
Absolutely not. I wanted to be the greatest film director in the world, the greatest writer in the world, the greatest theatre director in the world. And what I've ended up doing is because I'm so passionate about the work, as I've ended up being able, for some reason, I've fallen into being able to talk about it, the knowledge that I've accumulated over my life, my passion for this amazing work. It's just become something that I'm 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 constantly asked to do what I do, and it's something I just sort of fell into, particularly when I was sort of younger. But I think I love it because I meet so many amazing, interesting, creative people through what I do, and I work with so many different types of people, like you, Jonathan. I work with individual artists. I also work with musicians. I work with independent filmmakers, everything up to, anybody that's from, just starting out to people who are at the right at the top of the game, Broadway, stars, like award winners, West End stars, filmmakers who've made it with films in Hollywood and, that have garnered critical acclaim over the years. It's just, it's just for me, it's just something because I'm so passionate about all of those things. That's something I've ended up being able to talk about and build relationships with, as well, build professional relationships with a lot of artists and creative people.
So
Don't you notice that?
I'm joining you here. So hi everybody.
Hi.
So Jonathan, what you were
Don't you
saying?
notice that people smell it on you? I was thrown into this by the people that I worked with as an actor.
Mm.
Field, the artistic director of Theater for the New City, Wynn Handman, the founder and artistic director of the American Place Theater. And before I went, they must have smelled it on me or something that I could do this work. And my artistic background was not in the literary part of theater, but just in acting. And nevertheless, so now I look at everything with an actor's eye, which is just weird because other publicists I've met in the course of many years look on things with a fan's eye. And how it comes out different for them from me, I'm not really sure. But I think they do represent more stars, and I represent new work primarily.
Mm-hmm.
So that's helpful. So you basically your main focus is new work. Michelle, that seems like it probably applies to you too, but it's interesting to me that you promote venues. Can you tell me a little bit about what promoting venues is, what that looks like, and how different is it from the shows that you promote or the self-producing artists that you promote?
Often with a venue, obviously there's a lot of work included in that. So, for instance, there's a really amazing sort of like range of venues at the Fringe that are ones that just pop up for the Fringe. There's some that are there all year round. And then there's ones that just pop up during the Fringe that they're a venue that just for that month. They keep coming back each year, but they're not an all year round venue. With a venue, there's obviously a lot of different shows and a lot of different work at that venue itself. So you kind of have to have, when you promote a venue in the Fringe, this is the Fringe perspective, you're not giving, unless that venue is part of the producing of something, you don't give anything the spotlight. You kind of talk about the program as a whole and the themes of that program, and you pick up. I mean, we can talk about this a bit more as we go on, but like what the unique selling points of each particular show are, or what the ethos of that venue might be as well. So with a venue, it's different. Obviously, when I first met you, Bob, we were at Edinburgh, which was a different kind of offering. Edinburgh was something that was set up when we did have the pandemic and like venue, there was no live events, and it was set up as a love letter to the Fringe, but also as an opportunity for people to see work digitally. So there were like one-off performances that were recorded live that you could like this you could log in and watch over Zoom, and then once that ended, the ambition was always to have this as a venue. And it was a venue that was set up because it was not just a venue, it was an actual whole ethos of making sure that new work was produced, but it was like a combination of things that were a success at the Fringe. So like shed-based versions. When we say shed, it was called Edinburgh because it was like a shed that was built. And we had when it was the digital festival, there was a shed at the Traverse Theatre in Edinburgh and a shed at the Soho Theatre in London. There was no audience. It was just the producers, which was Francesca Moody, productions.
The Francesca Moody. Let me just
The
say.
Francesca Moody. The Francesca Moody. It was
Let's
her idea.
tell everybody about Francesca Moody. Francesca Moody brought Baby Reindeer to the Edinburgh Fringe, and what was the other one that became a huge Fleabag.
Fleabag was the first one. Yeah,
Fleabag,
yeah.
and then
Fleabag.
Baby Reindeer. So everybody's watching what she's doing, because she's had
the woman
two
with the golden touch.
golden, exactly. Let's focus this a little bit. Let's talk about Jonathan. You've done publicity for the Theatre for New City for the Dream Up Festival. Is that correct?
Yes.
Have you done any other festival work?
I've only represented shows, individual shows that were
Okay.
appearing in other festivals.
So let's talk for a second about
the only
difference.
festival I have represented is the Theatre for the New City Dream Up Festival.
Let's talk about festivals for. Let's actually focus on that. Then we can move to other things later. But I
Sure.
think a lot of people here are actually interested in the festivals. One thing I can tell you from my experience is that here in New York, I was very involved with the New York Fringe, which hasn't been around for well. There's a new New York Fringe, which is from the Frigid Festival right now, but the New York Fringe was 200 and 230 festivals. I was also involved with Midtown International Theater Festival as their marketing person for a couple of years. So one of the things that people misunderstand or just wonder about is there an advantage to being part of a festival? And is there publicity taken care of because they're in the festival? The answer is a loud and screaming no. It's not. You still have to sort of promote yourself. But the fact that the Fringe here for 230 shows had a publicist who was sort of overseeing all of it and sort of promoting the whole festival is pretty amazing. But when you consider the number of plays that are at the Edinburgh Fringe, you will immediately see that that is just never going to be a possibility. That's 3,800 pieces that one person could not possibly be representing or helping to promote. The festival, just for everybody in the room, the festival is not, their job is not to promote your show. Their job is to promote the festival. So let's talk a little bit about what you can and what you can't do for somebody who has a piece in the festival and you're part of the festival promotion team. Jonathan, it's probably easier explained for you with something that has
it's probably
a manageable number of pieces in it.
Compared to the Edinburgh Festival,
Yeah.
the Dream Up Festival is very manageable. It's usually only about 25 productions. And I, as the festival publicist, put out press releases in which I cover all the shows. Put a key description of each show, the schedules. One of the important things to realize about the Dream Up Festival is when they started the festival, I said, Michael Scott Price is the artistic director of the festival, and he conceived it in the first place. I said, Michael, if the festival is going to be successful, then people have to be able to be reviewed, because if they're not reviewed at all, nobody's going to notice them, and nobody's going to get their message out because they're not noticed. So I said, it's a scheduling issue. We've got to have them available for review over a period of 3 weeks, because otherwise they're just not going to be covered. That was in the time, of course, when there were plenty of legacy media outlets operating, and they were print outlets. And if something was reviewed in the second week, the review could come out in the third week, and it could help somebody for about 4 days. Whereas a show that had a 4-week run, let's say, the critic could attend in the first week, the review could come out in the second week, and it would help in the second week, the third week, and the fourth week. The people that were responsible for these media outlets were in the position of helping somebody. But if you constructed a schedule that only gave them about 4 days of readership, they weren't helping them. So they would put their resources, their scarce little space behind someone that they could actually help. Well, it worked out somewhat. We've kept that tradition up, and I think that it gives the shows time to grow within the 3-week period, and also more time to be reviewed.
So, Michelle, from your point of view, you're not representing 3,800 shows, but if you're representing a venue, then there is a manageable number of shows that you can be supporting. How does that work at Edinburgh Fringe?
Yeah, I'll go back to that. When I was at the Fringe Society, there was probably, it was still peak Fringe. There was probably like, over 3,500 shows, whatever it was in those years as well. This was pre-pandemic. And, obviously as the Fringe, when you work at the Fringe Society, you're somebody who has to be impartial. I can't be promoting all the 3,800 shows, but what I would do would go to meet all the venues, all the producers, all the big producers that would bring a body of work, and a lot of PRs who would represent a lot of that stuff, and get a real feel for what was happening at that year's Fringe, and pull out themes and speak to the programming team and try and dissect what was happening across all of that, 3,800 shows or whatever. As a personal publicist, if I work for a venue, yes, again, like Jonathan just said, when you're working on a festival with a certain amount of, like currently I'm promoting the French Film Festival UK, for instance. We've got a certain amount of titles. So it's about talking about which films they are, what's about those films, and which venues they're at across the country, because it's a festival that is across the country, not just in one specific place. But when it comes to a venue at the Fringe, and I've worked in theatres as well, where I've been the media person for theatres, where they have a theatre that's an all year round theatre that has a certain amount of productions that it can have throughout a year or a season. And I've obviously started off with promoting the season, and then the individual shows, where every individual show has to have its own individual campaign. But as regards to doing festival PR, I also take on a number of individual shows or producers. I work with a lot of producers like Francesca year on year, promoting their work. Recent hits have been things like Weather Girl. This year we had Ohio, which was our big hit that went on elsewhere.
My performance was canceled. I didn't get to see it.
Oh yeah, Was this near that? Yeah, that was like near the end. That happens at the Edinburgh Fringe. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what Jonathan was talking about as well, about the longer you can do it for. If you can do a whole full 3-week run, it is better than doing just a 1 week. Sometimes the economics might work out better for a 3-week run, and given that time to build up. But yeah, there's it can also take its toll. Something like the Edinburgh Fringe, which is 30 days of crazy madness. It is hard. It's the hardest festival to do, but it's also the best festival to do, I think. It's like a lot of film actors aren't taken seriously until they've done a play, on Broadway or the West End. It's like you've got to try and, there might be a big Hollywood star and they come and do a play to really hone their acting chops, to prove their merit that they are a true actor, if you like. It's the same thing with, like, you've not done theatre unless you've done a show at the Edinburgh Fringe, or you're not a performer. It's like that kind of rite of passage thing that a lot of people think is the thing to do, because it is unique. So the difference, I think, between having a finite amount of work to promote alongside something of being part of something, is there's a huge difference in that. But it's also, there's a lot of things, if you are going to be bringing a show to the Fringe, one of the things I would always say to anybody is the first rule of thumb is to bring your best work. That don't come with something that you're not entirely, passionate and complete. You're not complete. You don't feel like you've completed the work, or it's not the best work, because you need to really believe in the work you're bringing. And the second main thing is to realize why you're coming as well. Why are you coming to do this? You need to have your goals. Not everybody is going to get a 5-star review or a London or New York transfer after it, or to go to other festivals. Not everyone's going to get a TV show out of performing there, or but you might meet your next big collaborator. There could be somebody in your audience that is somebody that can take you to that next level. And you're not going to come maybe necessarily so.
For some people, I know I understand what you're saying, and I agree with what you said about bringing your best work. But some people think that it's an opportunity to develop the work, they get it in front of audiences. But I would say that you probably don't want to spend the amount of money it's going to take you to get over to Edinburgh to use that as the first place you're going to have your work seen. A lot of people I do think that it's a tryout situation, and it can be. It can be, but again, that also goes to what you're saying now, which is know why you're there. What is your goal when you're going? So if you want to be competitive, if you want to be Fleabag and suddenly become like a world renowned property, you need to be pretty well aware of what your property is, and it has to be in a certain shape. But if you just want to go there, and also, again, it's a big commitment to go and just to try it out and see how it is in front of an audience, when you can do that here in New York, and you can go to the Soho Playhouse or wherever and do a reading or whatever. So, Jonathan, in terms of the Dream Up Festival, do you feel that it's a tryout situation, or is it something where people are they're showing themselves to the best if they possibly can by being really ready with the work? Do you get a lot of work that is the first time up?
Yeah, it depends on the property. For myself, I've found the festival shows that I've represented through the years somewhat unfulfilling, in the sense that first of all, it's done on a rep plot, so you don't have your own lighting plot. That takes away certain depth from the performance.
Also true at Edinburgh.
Yeah. You often have the show half rehearsed, so it's like a work in progress. But on the other hand, it's to describe the festival that way is a disservice to the concept of the festival, because the festival is supposed to be the debut productions of these new works. So we want the shows to be finished work, but realistically, the way it works out, they're falling together. This is a problem we have with theater in general. Ever since the Equity instituted the showcase code, you have a limited rehearsal time, you have limited performance time, and you're ready to have your final dress rehearsal at the time that the show is over. It's an inorganic structure they've imposed on it. My feeling is that a show needs four weeks of rehearsal, and Equity gives you really less than 2 weeks. And
technically, what they give you, they give you 5 weeks. 5 weeks total, and they give you a total amount of I think it's 125 hours for a showcase for rehearsal. So yes, when you factor in the performance times, you are crammed into a 5-week time frame.
Yeah, to me, it's an inorganic structure. Now, in the last few years, we've had an increasing number of shows that we are actually presenting as works in progress. So for the first 15 years of the festival, we didn't have such a thing. And if Michael takes the position that if he's really interested in the artist, he's really interested in the themes or the writing or the language, if he has a reason to put it on, then he'll play ball with that. And I can't say that it's a bad thing to do. It's probably a good thing to do, because there's probably a stage in a play's development where it can thrive by having the input of an audience. So we're probably doing a service by providing some slots like that. But as I said, most of the shows are presented as if they are finished work and they're open for review.
So I'm going to ask a few other questions. Basically, tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me that when somebody approaches you with a single play where you're just going to be representing a play, you're going to be representing an artist or a play, you most publicists will get to know that play really, really well. I mean, you will actually know what is important about that play, what is interesting, what the themes are. You have to in order to be able to write about it coherently and persuasively when you're writing to the press. So talk about what the process is like. Jonathan, if you're doing 24 plays, you're not going to, it just doesn't seem likely that you're going to be able to know 24 plays in the same level that you know with a one play when you're hired for that single play. And same thing for you, Michelle. How different is the work for you when you're working on one piece versus representing a venue's the 15 pieces that are at a venue?
You're absolutely right that you don't have an opportunity to learn the productions as deeply as you would with an individual show client. In the past, I had a lot of interns who were very, very good, people with good language and writing skills, people who had a sophisticated outlook on theater. I was just very fortunate to get good people, and I used to divide up the 24 shows and say say it was 3 sets of 8 shows, and I'd assign them each one to one of my 3 interns. And then I would work with them very closely, one at a time, talking about what do we think is this show's letter to the world? What do they want us to know better because they did this work? And it wasn't the work of one person to analyze the shows. And it was an interesting experiment that I could learn and grow from. And I wish I could do it again. I stopped having interns during the pandemic and haven't restarted yet, but I'm looking forward to other ways of working with other people collaboratively to master what I'm saying about these shows.
Michelle, how about you? What's the process like for you with a single show that you're representing versus a whole series of shows that are part of your responsibility?
Well, the thing is, currently, what I do is, I'll have various clients throughout the year, and then during the Fringe, I will take on a bespoke number of shows and clients for that particular thing. And, I do, like last year, I had probably the most amount of shows I'd ever represented at the Fringe. And what my going back to what Jonathan said, is like, what I try and do is, I do have people that come work with me join the Fringe itself to actually do things like, process tickets, or if there's journalists, there's another inbox for like, if anybody's asking for information that's easily there. Well, I'm out there in the field with the artists, with the press, and I always like to try and see as the script straight away before I, when I work with somebody, see if there's any previews, any rehearsals to go and do that, so I can envelop myself in whatever that work is. So anything that an artist or a company can give me in advance, the better we are, and the earlier the better. So because one of the things about the Edinburgh Fringe is it's not till August, but the actual festival starts to go on sale in the February. There's some shows that are put on sale then, but it's such a crowded marketplace that you have to be ahead of the game. You have certain milestones throughout the year of when you need to let people know about it. And then another thing as well is obviously with the shrinking of media publications, with the shrinking of arts coverage, it's more and more competitive than it ever was, not just throughout the year, but in particular around the Fringe time. And there's plenty of other, things that happen throughout the year, artistically and creatively, to take up those spaces before people start to think about the Fringe. But there's a key point, particularly pre the main program launch in the June, is that is when you have to have apps. Before then, you have to have absolutely all your materials ready. So the sooner you can get not just the writing of a press release. One of the other things I want to say is as well, you might think when you register for the Edinburgh Fringe, you send in like a 40-word copy and a 100-word copy describing what your show is. Often that's the thing that I would get from artists initially, but until you actually learn more about the show, you read the script, you see some of the stuff, and sometimes you would only see it at the first preview because sometimes it can be going back to that rehearsal period. I think that the first time you will get to see it will be that first preview, and you go, this is not what you say your show is about, and you can only get that by talking to the artists and pulling out the stories, because they might be like blah 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 blah, and it's something that isn't necessarily going to sell the show, but also you think about the stories. I'm going to tell you a story here about when I worked at the Fringe Society. We used to do with this, they still do them, but we do these Fringe road shows where we go out and we invite people to come along and speak to us about what they've got at the Fringe and how we can help. And I remember going to we did one in Liverpool, where I was born, where I'm from, and there was this theatre company came up, and there was two guys, and they said, and we said, well, what's your show about? And they said, oh, it's about these two builders, and they go and end up having to, for some reason, they go to Saddam Hussein's palace or whatever, and they're doing the building of this. The next thing, there's a lockdown, and they get stuck in this palace for like months and blah blah blah. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I said blah blah, and then it wasn't until they were about to leave that we were like, well, is this based on real people? And they went, yeah, I was one of the builders. I'm like, that is your selling point of your show. That is an amazing press story. This unassuming person that's like, as a publicist, you talk to people and you go, these are the things that is real. These are the things that are people who need to know this bit about you. You might have all these ideas about, your creative process, all that, but sometimes in order to get critics' attention, writers' attention, and then the audience's attention, there's a lot more things with this about that is the thing that will make you stand out amongst all of those thousands of shows that are being produced at the same time. Does that make sense, Bob?
Oh, absolutely. No. I know exactly what you're talking about. I basically, because I was doing the marketing for Midtown International Theater Festival, I actually gave consultations to every person in the show. I mean, in the festival. So I was doing 30 or 40 consultations. And and I also know this running true and dealing with playwrights all the time. What a playwright thinks their play is about, and what it turns out to be truly about in terms of the interest level for other people, are often very different. It's fascinating. And I am a playwright, so I probably have done the same thing myself, where I've thought that my play was about one thing, and it kind of is, but that's not really what we're interested in. You have to have the conversations.
Or it's not the only thing. Yeah, or it's not the only thing. There's plenty more things that can be there, or things that you might forget, but with having a conversation, with somebody like me or Jonathan, or like somebody at your venue or at the press office there, or somebody at the festival itself, because you forget about, and any artist, there's so many things that you keep inside that, like, you might struggle or grapple with, but like, just to bring that out, you can, it's like, stop, having that of like, that's why having a publicist or somebody who is there going to be representing your work is like, you just need to do the work and make the best work that you possibly can and concentrate on bringing the best show. Let somebody else do that for you. You take that pressure off. But just to have those conversations, and it's stressful doing any of this, not just putting pen to paper and getting people together to rehearse or any. It's like trying to get to that next level is so stressful. And
I have a
you need people to take that load off you, you just want to, you need to just make the best work, really.
I have a clarification because I meant to ask this earlier to you. Um, is it safe to, well, okay, let me ask you this. Do you ever represent individual plays in addition to the work that you're doing for the Fringe? Can somebody hire you to be their publicist while you're working the Fringe Festival, which seems
I don't
like an
think it's
enormous
ethical.
amount of what?
I don't think it's ethical to represent a play that to charge a playwright or a production to charge them my fee to represent a play that I'm already representing. So our policy is we will refer them to other press agents. It's a good idea for them to have their own press agent, definitely. Right. But I wouldn't take a fee to represent a show as a private client. Now, where I get into trouble is if I have a private client who writes a play and it gets accepted in the festival, and then I'm responsible for it. So I can take them as a private client because I have that's I'm not going to abandon my artists because they're working in the festival. You have a relationship with them you have to live up to.
The reason I'm asking the question is because I'm sure there are people in the room going, "Oh, well, I wonder if I could hire Michelle if I go to the Edinburgh Fringe." So the same question to you, Michelle. Do you represent individual pieces?
I do represent individual pieces. That's what I do because, like, I'm now, I have my own company. I'm a publicist. I've got my own PR company, and I bring people on to help me do that. But you get me. You don't get. I'm not an agency where you've got my, it's my name on the block. You get me. And I do individual shows and I also do showcases and I do a bunch of work from producers because I'm not at the Fringe Society anymore and I'm not tied to any particular thing. I just like to work with people. It's about their story, their passion, their talent, and their commitment to what they are doing. If I like that, I will work with those people. And as I said to you, it's like anybody who might be starting out to somebody who's already at the top of their game, and producers who I work with regularly. I also do things like most years I promote the Danish showcase that comes to the Fringe, like all the Danish shows. There's a showcase of Danish work.
Oh,
I do
I saw.
things with the
What did I
Pleasance.
say? What was it? I saw Eclipse, the acrobats. I saw that. That was Danish. Are you?
Yes, yes, yeah. And also the other thing I do regularly is that Pleasance do a thing called Edinburgh National Partnerships where they've got a bunch of shows that they they promote from across the country. So I will do those as a program of work. But absolutely. And as I said, producers like Francesca Moody, there's other producers I work with regularly. Who bring work. I've even done some Molly Morris, who I've done some of the shows that she's produced as well.
She's our
So
pal.
yeah, I am. Yeah, I am actually like I am. That's what I do. If you get in touch with me, and I like if you're bringing a show to the Fringe, and you get in touch with me, and you say I need a publicist because you do need a publicist because there's so many people like bringing a show. You need to stand out amongst that crowd. And it does happen where it can happen where you don't do any marketing, you don't do any whatever, and somebody wanders into your show, and it can happen that that right person was in the show, and then it blows up because something like the Fringe is word of mouth as well. But you need to hit the ground running. You need to have those tools there. You need to have somebody like me in front of the big players in the media, the editors, the people who are commissioners, the writers, the journalists who are going to come and cover the Fringe to get you, if you can, advance press in features, etc. But at least to maybe make sure that you will at least get somebody in to review your show as early as possible. And also for things like there's awards that you have to make sure you're on the radar of the people who are running awards at the Fringe. The holy grail is to get a Scotsman Fringe first. Um, that's the Holy Grail at the Edinburgh Fringe. But then there are other awards. It's just to make sure that
Speaking
someone
of
shows
which,
on the radar.
Chloe and Natasha are bringing What If They Ate the Baby to a Soho Playhouse. So I'll give a little plug for our friends because they have become friends. Chloe and Natasha, they're going to be at the Soho Playhouse doing What If They Ate the Baby, which Gary and I saw at the Fringe. It was a very, very interesting piece. I enjoyed it very much. It's in a style, it's in an absurdist style that I was happy to see being used because I don't see it used a lot. It was definitely absurdism. So one thing I want to squeeze in before I go to the room questions from the room because I think there have been a lot of questions. I want to squeeze in some of the information that we've shared before, but some of you who may not have been here before don't know this. First of all, the timing. What is the ideal length of a show for the Fringe?
60 minutes.
Jonathan, for Dream Up Festival, what are they looking for?
I don't actually know.
Well,
Sorry,
I think it's 60 to 90. You can go as much as 90. It's similar to John Chatterton. Basically, they prefer 60-minute shows as well, but they will give you you can spend a little bit more and you can get 90 minutes. But in general, most festivals do not encourage anything more than 90 minutes. So that's one thing. The other thing is the greatest thing that you can do for yourself when you're at the Fringe is busk. You have to go out and you have to basically hit the streets and you have to promote your show. Everybody that's been there, everybody who I've had on the show talked about that, how crucial that is. You're gonna be postering your shows. It's going to cost you money. You're gonna have to decide how much money you can afford. But it's very competitive. Every square inch of Edinburgh is postered, so you have to get noticed somehow. So be prepared for that as being an expense. And as James Simon has put into the chat at one point, you can expect to spend $30,000 to $40,000 bringing a show to the Fringe. So you have to really consider whether it's worth the investment for yourself. There are also ways of doing it for a lot less. I know Chloe and Natasha do not spend 40 to 50,000.
No.
No, they don't. They don't, James. I honest, they don't. You can probably, I don't think you can do it for less than 10 or 15,000, but doesn't have to be 30 or 40. I'm trying to think if there's any other basics that I want people to know. Owen, can you pull questions out?
Yep. First question from RK Green. With lots of product at fests, are there statistics of the success of shows moving to other venues London, New York runs?
No, but there should be, I think. There really should be. I mean, I think what happens, RK, is that there will be certain venues or showcases like the Made in Scotland program it's a program that happens every year at the Fringe where it's got backing from the Scottish Government, Expo Fund, the Fringe Society, Creative Scotland, the Scottish Music Centre, and the Federation of Scottish Theatre. And it's about promoting Scottish work on the Fringe. And I think the stats that they do for the work that is performed at the Fringe and then gone elsewhere across the world as part of this Onward Touring Fund. There'll also be like that with some of the venues that maybe like the Traverse potentially, like the all year round venues that are also known for their Fringe work. They might have their own, but I don't know if the Fringe itself, because there's so many shows as well, I don't know if there are those stats for that. But it's a very good question because there should be that information somewhere, but I don't know how that would be quantified.
You got to realize that the possibility of a show becoming successful and popular after it's been in a festival, that's a hope that we all pin our careers upon. I think it got very strongly established in the second year of the New York Fringe when Urinetown became successful and it went on to Broadway. And then for years and years and years, people have been hoping that their show could come out of a festival in New York and go on to Broadway. And the actual record probably does not support this as a likely outcome. and believing in it is probably the triumph of hope over experience. But I'm not going to
I
say
know.
that we should shoot it down with actual stats, because that show business is the triumph of hope over experience, and we're all guilty of it.
There probably were more examples of things that went on to successful or at least off-Broadway runs. Um, I can think of a couple. I know. What was it called? Matt and Ben. Matt and Ben came out of the Fringe and ran off Broadway. I think the Silence of the Lambs musical may have come out of the Fringe. I'm not sure, but there were a smattering of things that came out of the New York Fringe. But the big one was always You're in Town. That was the big hope.
Mm.
Um, and the interesting thing is we immediately talked about Francesca Moody's success, and those are not shows in the Fringe that moved to theaters. Those are shows in the Fringe that moved to TV. So there are all sorts of paths and possibilities. I think going back to what Michelle said earlier is be very clear about why you're there. If it's for development, then keep your ambitions reasonable. Be satisfied just having audiences coming in and getting audience response and understanding a little bit more about your show because you've done it in front of an audience.
I heartily agree, Bob.
Yeah.
You've got to have sound creative reasons for doing a show
Yeah.
in a festival.
Yeah.
And and if you can't achieve your sound creative goals, you don't have to do it. You could bring your play along another way.
We talk about this in the Essentials of Self-Producing on the 14th, but another goal is basically just to have a credit. Writers have to build a resume in some way. So actually being able to say that your show is at the Fringe on your resume, it's not going to hurt.
No, not at all. And I think also, going back to those goals things, it's so worth doing, because it's the world's greatest arts marketplace. The amount of people that come, the arts industry that are credit for that, the international media that are there. There's other festivals happening at the same time. There's the film festival that's on. There's the book festival that's on. There's the international festival.
It's insane.
But there's all these people. It's insane. Honestly, if you've not been, it's like Edinburgh is a medieval town.
What I like to tell what I like to tell my New York friends is if you've decided that Times Square on New Year's Eve is not crowded enough for you, go to Edinburgh Fringe. You'll see more people there crammed into a small space than you do New Year's Eve at Times Square.
Yeah, but it works, and most people are there for the same reason. They want to see great art. There's people there who are looking to pick up art. There's people who are looking to, find their next collaborators. And, it's not just finding your next collaborator. People find their next love or their partner, and they marry people at the Fringe. But, it's that kind of thing of like, most people are there for the one reason and one reason only, and you never know who you would meet. You might be standing next to somebody, you might be sitting next to somebody in somebody else's show. It's just take upon, there's nothing like it. And yet doing a show over that many times, you will get in front of different audiences every day. There's no better way than realizing what the best parts of your show or what your work is, and developing that process throughout that month. It's invaluable, to you as an artist.
Owen, let's move on. Is there another question?
Yep. Next question from Mike Katona. Are there any samples of what the initial reach out to press looks like for a show? Is there a bit of a standard approach or structure? I'm sure press folks get inundated with these kinds of announcements and invitations, and he wants to specify this is a question more about a single show than Fringe or a schedule.
Let me put it in a different way. Michelle and Jonathan, do you have templates that you base most of your press releases on, or do you reinvent it every time?
Well, you kind of reinvent it every time with the content of it, but the structure of it should always be similar. One thing you would do is like, you have a uh, not cheesy, but a catchy sort of headline telling you, saying what it is, then you always put on where the show is and when it is, the title of the show, all of that sort of stuff
Michelle,
straight away.
I'm gonna do a show in the future about the difference between cheesy. What did you say? Cheesy or not cheesy, but
Not cheesy, but something that's got impact in your,
okay.
in your opening, your headline for your release. And then the key sentient points of the show in a couple of paragraphs, two or three paragraphs, and then you kind of list who's involved, etc. And then you put all the listings on. And one of the things with this is individual shows, but also if you are bringing it to the Fringe, make sure that they know that it's coming to the Fringe at the top. The amount of journalists that get sent they get sent thousands and thousands of emails of shows that are coming to the Fringe, and then some people forget to put that it's actually happening at the Fringe. That's going to get completely lost because writers and journalists and editors will compartmentalize. They will have their inboxes, which they will be like, that's Fringe stuff, that's stuff that's happening, on the West End, that's happening, or maybe by month or whatever. But I think the earlier you can get people information, the better. So that the earlier that can happen, um, is the golden time is 4 to 6 weeks in advance of a single show opening in a theatre. But the longer lead stuff when it's a season announcement, the longer you can do that. Like, some of those things can be announced like 6 months in advance, 8 months in advance sometimes. But yeah, I think when you are talking about your show, it needs to be the key details and what the show's about, not a long-winded essay on it, just, the key points of what the show is, what people can expect, and a quote from the creator or the writer or the director.
Jonathan, anything different in terms of in your world?
I don't have much to add to what Michelle said, except that for the Dream Up Festival, we do give them a boilerplate paragraph about the festival and about Theatre for the New City. And that's pretty much all there is to say. A press release for a show is a press release for a show. It's got to have essential information presented in a cogent way. And I want to talk about that because that's a place where I think I can help people a lot. An announcement of a show has an intelligent accumulation of pertinent detail, not random detail that doesn't relate to the show. What do you have to tell me about the show that I will be interested in? You got to have a disciplined approach, and you cannot be self-praising and saying how great the show is. We leave that job to the critics. And you must write in good grammar. And now in my practice, as a matter of policy, I follow the New York Times style sheet. It's available online. You can order it from Amazon. There are several style sheets. That's the booklets that these media organizations have written out for their own staffs about how to write things. And it has their rules of attribution, punctuation, grammar.
What's the one that's strunk and white or something? White. What's that other one? There's another.
Well, there are numerous books about how to write well. I have a bookshelf full of them. And I myself will use the New York Times style sheet and the AP style sheet when I have a question that I really have to resolve the right way. So what I want to say to everybody is buy them and use them. And if you write badly, you will not look professional. And if you don't look professional, you won't inspire confidence in your show that someone would assign it for coverage over someone else's show. So write well. Write journalistically and well, write economically. And don't tell people about how pleased you are to be in a show. That's extraneous detail. If you were ambivalent about your show, it wouldn't be happening. So don't say cliche things like that. Write a strong lead. A lead is the opening sentence, the opening paragraph of a journalistic article. It answers the questions who, what, where, when, and why. It's like the given circumstances in the Stanislavski system. Every system has a technique, and this is the technique of journalism. The lead says who, what, where, when, and why. Write a good lead. If you can write a good lead, you can make a living as a publicist. That's
And,
what we do.
and take work away from you. No,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah,
no,
that's
let's not
right.
do that.
You'd be my competition. Oh, here's
Yeah,
another thing. Have the pictures to support your show. You know, the biggest problem that I have with the Dream Up Festival is these shows come in without pictures. I have had an incident where the Villager wanted to do a dedicated issue to the Dream Up Festival to support the festival, and I didn't have one picture in a festival of 18 shows. I didn't have one suitable production picture to give for this article, so the article couldn't happen. It actually has happened to me. That should never happen in your shows. Take it from me. Take good pictures, use them, always have pictures.
So let me just say that one of the things that I tell everybody when they're self-producing is of all the the first budget item that you want to make sure you have covered is a photographer. So
absolutely.
you
Yeah.
really have to have.
And we
I
don't
agree
mean
with
that,
Jonathan. You need production shots.
and you need professional shots, and that means not friend pictures. Now, I photograph the shows I represent because I started doing that when I worked in sports, and I just kept doing it. Also, it was because the clients I had couldn't afford to hire the professional photographers, and surprise, surprise, I found I was good at it. But one of the good things about me shooting the pictures is I'm already deeply immersed in the show, so I know what I want to bring out in the pictures. Now, designing publicity pictures puts the theater director and producer and author in the position of like an advertising man. And it's a very hard adjustment to make to come up with a concept for your pictures. So I wrote an article about it that helps people get started. And I put the link to this article in the chat so you can look it up. How to take publicity pictures that sell. And one of the most important things about these pictures is you must supply captions. The caption is that little squib that goes underneath the picture when it's printed. It tells you who's in the picture and what's happening, and it gives a photo credit. When all your pictures must be captioned, and that doesn't mean to put the caption information in the file name. I don't have a computer system where I can copy and paste from the file name. So what I want everybody to do is put their captions in as IPTC metadata. That stands for International Press Telecommunications Council. You take Photoshop, you drop down the file menu and select info, and there's a little square there, and you write the comment. It's usually labeled comment. And when the text that you put in there will show up in the New York Times and the AP's editing software, and in Google albums, in the photo albums, it shows up in there in the right place. So the most professional way to do things is to use the system that was set up for us. Follow the International Press Telecommunications Council practice and put stuff in the metadata. And you know, if it's in the metadata, it cannot be separated from the picture. It goes with it, whether you email it or you know, give it to somebody on a flash drive. It's not separated from the picture. It's not going to get lost.
Owen, more questions? Owen, are you there? Oh, did he leave?
Owen
No.
had to leave, but I think he's posted all the questions in the chat.
Oh,
I can
okay.
read them if you like.
Well, one of them is from you, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Rudaba.
So thank you for this amazing discussion and super helpful. So how does a New York City-based show and team get in touch with an EdFringe producer like Francesca Moody or someone from her team, or does it make sense to work with a New York City producer instead who has EdFringe experience? Like, what would you recommend?
I want to
I
jump
think
in with one piece of information we just didn't share before, which is crucial. The way to get into the Edinburgh Fringe, the first step is to find a venue. You get into the Edinburgh Fringe by getting yourself booked in a venue. So now we can go to the step two, which is the producer.
Yeah, I also think finding a venue, like get the team in place as soon as you can, so that it's more attractive to a venue to get the venue you want. I think when coming to the Fringe, you need to choose the right venue for your show and the right time. It's a really competitive thing, so the sooner you can get in touch with them, the better. If you want to work with a producer, the best thing you can do is to do your research on the type of people that you want to work with. Everybody's got a website. You can contact them and tell them about your show. It does, I mean, somebody like Francesca Moody has worked with a lot of shows that have come from New York. I work with a lot of shows that come from New York that have maybe there'll be a UK producer that will come on board. Some of them will bring producers with them. It all depends on what the best fit for your show is. And yeah, I think it is, if you're doing something like, if you are bringing a show to the Edinburgh Fringe, I think it's good to work with a producer that has knowledge and the experience of doing the Fringe before, because that can help in spades, because they will then get what the economics is like, how that works. But yeah, I mean, you just need to choose the best producer for you and your work. So do your research on who you think that would be, or you might have collaborators that you've worked with in the past who would still be perfect for you. It's just about who you get on with creatively.
And at the very least, you can have conversations with some of the true friends who have produced the Fringe. Like Blair Russell has produced three shows this year, 2 shows last year. He's been producing every year. Anybody that's in Blair's class knows that he's available to talk to about anything, and certainly will give you advice and ideas about the Fringe. He may not produce your show, but he
can give you advice. I promote Blair Russell's, a lot of Blair Russell's work as well. I've worked with a lot of his shows, and he knows the Fringe inside out, definitely.
Did you meet Claire Foy and Josh Dooley this past year? No, I guess he didn't. They were producing I can't think what the name, but I Was a Teenage She-Wolf.
So,
and they produced 2 pieces there too. You're frozen.
Then. Yeah, but I remember that show being here. Wow, yeah. Great.
Okay, and now from Jesse.
I've frozen.
Yeah, you're frozen. You're back. Question from Jesse is, what type of support, if any, do organizations like Gilded Balloon, Underbelly, and Pleasance provide for artists? Are there perks with working with one of those over the other, or over others that are not them? Do you know?
Well, I mean, every single venue should have a marketing and a press operation. The venues that you've quoted there, so like Gilded, Underbelly, Pleasance, and there's also Assembly, have been doing shows at the Fringe for a long, long time. They've got various venues, and they are very, very professional at what they do. So it's worth, they will obviously put you in all their individual programs. They will give you advice, and obviously they will put out their own sort of press releases about what their programs are for that Fringe. But they tend to not give the bespoke support to things unless it's something they've produced in. But if they believe your show is one of their highlights, they will do that. And they, again, like the Fringe itself, they will be like, these are our comedy shows, these are our theatre shows, these are our, cabaret shows or whatever. So you will go within that. And I think the more you can go, and again, the imagery, again, going back to that, if you've got a brilliant image, they will use that as well as as much as a media publication will. A pitch is worth 1,000 words in any kind of press. So if you've got good imagery that they will use on their sort of platforms as well, then
the other thing to bear in mind,
and perks working with on the other. I don't know. You need to have the conversations with all those venues.
I don't know this for a fact, but I would think that the venues like Gilded Balloon, Underbelly, Pleasance, and what was the fourth one? The fourth big one.
Assembly is one of the big ones. Yeah, Assembly is the other big one.
They're probably harder. There are very small venues in Edinburgh. We're talking like 20, 30 seats, and they're very big venues, which are not necessarily these, but actually one of the Assembly venues is probably 1,000 seats. I know. So you also have to decide before you before you have to do your research. You have to look at what venues would fit your show. Gilded Balloon has multiple venues. They all have multiple venues. I think that, Michelle, I think that a lot of people would need some hand-holding, some advice in terms of, is this a venue that would be good for my piece? All of the ones that you're talking about are very high profile, and probably harder for you to get, and probably will be more expensive as well.
In demand. Yeah, that they will be there will be more competition to be in those venues. And there are plenty of venues at the Fringe as well. And I think one of the best things might be to do is to speak to the Fringe Society when you're thinking about doing the Fringe and asking, because there's venues that are there every year, all year round. There's information on those venues. And it might be worth talking to them about the kind of work that you're bringing, the kind of scale you think. One thing is like your show might be absolutely amazing, but you think about things like, Six the musical that started at the Fringe in a small venue, and that is like, a global phenomenon now. Do you know what I mean? It's like you don't need to be in the biggest venue, but sometimes it's worth coming. You need to obviously add up economically, but it might be worth starting off in a small venue and building that up, becoming a sellout, so you can say you can get the sold out laurel, and then you can bring it back, and then take it on, create that demand. And as I said, you're never gonna get all of the things that you want from doing the festival, but you might. Who knows? It's you can never ever call what the Fringe is going to be each year. It's like some things work and some things don't, but just come and do it and enjoy it and make as much, talk to as many people about your work as possible while you're here.
It would be safe to say that if 3,800 pieces that are performed, not all of them get reviewed. I can't imagine how that would be possible. There aren't enough critics in the world to review 3,800 pieces in 4 weeks.
Absolutely not, and that's why it's crucial to get somebody like ourselves to help you navigate that, to put you in front of the people that will come and see as much as possible. So I would go and sit with, like, as I said, the editors in the national newspapers. I would talk to the international editors of papers that arts and culture press, the broadcasters that come and cover the Fringe, to talk about your work, to put it in front of them, because how are they going to navigate it? They can't just put a pin in it. They've got to have some kind of guide of like what they should prioritize to see over something else that's not just what a venue's telling them to do, because as I said, if you're in that myriad of 3,800 shows, how are they going to find you? How are they going to find, because as I say, less and less people can cover.
Hit the streets and flyer like mad. Flyer like mad.
3 weeks. And also still flyer. There's plenty of ways. I mean, we can talk all night about the things that you can do marketing wise as well, but there are definitely tools there. Check out the EdFringe website. There's some tools on there. And then if you need advice on, who to get your posters from and stuff like that, there's an official poster distribution company called Out of Hand that get the contract each year to go across those big posters across the city, but always work within your budget. But as the image is key, and what you say about your show is key.
Well, we couldn't possibly cover everything today, but I would suggest to the people in the room who actually weren't at the previous 2 conversations about the EdFringe, go to YouTube, go to the Theater Resources Unlimited YouTube channel, check out the conversations we had, because there's more information there's different information in those than we provided today, and also for those of you who are in the New York area. Thinking in terms of possibly going to the Fringe, also think in terms of the Dream Up Festival. It offers a similar opportunity in a local setting. Think about the Midtown International Theater Festival. There are not as many festivals as there have been in the past, Jonathan. You know that that we keep closing festivals as fast as we close theaters.
Yeah.
But there are opportunities here. So decide what your goal is, decide what you need to do, and have realistic goals too. That's another thing that we should probably put here.
I want to comment on that, Bob, because I have a concise little thing here. You got to have a healthy philosophy towards your coverage. And the philosophy I would like you to adopt is that media relations is a process. Many entities are always competing for press coverage, so creativity and persistence are just always needed. And many factors will influence how much coverage is achievable. You have the urgency of the issue, the trustworthiness of the source, the time and location of the show, the availability of space in the paper. And you'll find that publicity follows a growth process that doesn't lend itself to short-term thinking. Over a period of time, the press begins to recognize you as a newsmaker, and they will associate you with your press representative. So have a press agent, have a relationship with someone you trust and that you work well with, and involve them in every production you're planning and you're thinking about, because they'll have valuable input for you. Now, there will be times when writers and editors cannot give you coverage because of factors beyond their control, but next time, maybe they'll be able to do it. So always have your team and follow a professional procedure towards your marketing and your media relations when you're going to put on a show.
Okay, I'm going to wrap up now, though, and you guys, we can stay and we can talk. But for YouTube, I do want to wrap up now. I want to thank Jonathan for all of the information that you're sharing, and Michelle, particularly, thank you for staying up so late. It's like past my bedtime there, where you are probably now. I say that everybody knows that's not true. I'm up emailing at 3 o'clock in the morning. So, but I appreciate. Meeting you, and I'm appreciate the fact that you were able to join us tonight, Jonathan. Always a pleasure to have you, and you're a friend and a supporter of TRU, and I appreciate you very much.
Bob, I appreciate you. You're a great man, and to be doing this such quality meetings for such a long period of time and serving the community so beautifully, you have all my applause.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm going to, after I close up for YouTube, I'm going to tell you a couple of things that are happening for me that I want you to know about. So I'm going to say goodnight to Michelle, and goodnight to Jonathan for now. They're still in the room. I'm just finishing up for you guys out there in YouTube land. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for finding TRU. Thank you to everybody who came and joined us in the room today. The support of the community means all the world to me. And if you like this, if you like conversations about theater and the arts, perhaps you would like to join us and be a part of the room. I can make that happen. So just email me at trunltd@aol.com. That's trunltd@aol.com. Put Zoom in the headline, say, make me laugh. So use Zoom in a funny way. And I will add you to our list and you'll get the email every week. So we do this as a community service. We are perfectly happy to have people coming for free. We also have bills to pay. So come for free, absolutely, if you need to. Do consider occasionally maybe paying for the $12 that we charge. Everybody, you can always get here. You can always get in for free. We always have a free ticket. And if you want to support what we do and become a member of TRU, that would be great. $95 a year. We're probably going to be raising the membership fee in 2026. So now's a good time to join. And if you want to give us a donation, go to TRU Donate, TRU Donate, TRU Donate.com, and give us whatever you can. And we deeply appreciate all the help you can give us. That's it. The weeks to come, next week, we're going to do a little private Thanksgiving session with the community. We're not going to be promoting it much. It's going to be just we call it just us, but we're going to talk about what we're thankful for, given the fact that the world is not in the happiest place. what can we be thankful for, we who are participating and members of the arts community. Then 2 weeks later, I'm going to be doing a special interview with Tara Moses, who is an advocate for the Indigenous American arts community. She's a very outspoken proponent of equity, diversity, equity, and inclusion issues. So join us for that. And the week after that, we're going to be having a conversation about the Latina community, both in New York and in Chicago. Week after week after week, I find interesting people to come in and talk about interesting things. So I hope that you will stop by and be part of this. Join us, be part of our community. Thank you.